Oh yeah! I am not subhuman. My favorite part of the show. What's that say? Talk to the audience? Oh god, this is always death. Alright.
Hello, my ducky boos. Right, comments day. Let's see, what have we got in the way of housekeeping? The YouTube comments issue appears to have resolved itself. It was only really letting me see the last 24 hours worth of comments at a time and was refusing to load any older ones. So if I haven't been quite as responsive in the comments as I normally am, that's why. It seems to have fixed itself immediately after I complained to YouTube about it. So let's be nice and assume that someone in support reset something on my channel that made it all work again. Fingers crossed. Yeah, let's stretch and give YouTube some kudos and assume it was them. On my previous video, the end credits thing, lots of people asked after the music. It was River of Intestines by the Dream Eaters. You can find the Dream Eaters on your streaming platforms of choice, on TikTok and on YouTube, where they only have 1.3k subs. So go and subscribe to them, and that'll make me feel better about nicking their music. They produce snappy little dark tunes and stings, but in a kind of somewhat poppy, somewhat new wave, sort of 80s style, I suppose. And many of them appeal to my dark sense of humour, so they should appeal to your dark sense of humour as well. While you're at it, make sure you are subbed to me. Some people appear to have been unsubbed recently, so always worth a check. I will be on The Week in Geek as usual tonight on the T-Shirted Historians channel, so go and subscribe there as well. This Sunday's Grim Game is Candela Obscura, a game I gave a terrible review to, which uses an iteration of Powered by the Apocalypse, which I hate. Derived from Blades in the Dark, which is slightly better, but still not fantastic. So I'm viewing this as a challenge, really. The idea is not to kick Candela Obscura while it is down. It is to see if I can challenge myself as a games master and make an enjoyable, interesting game out of something that I normally wouldn't. Plus get some value out of something I actually paid for. Coming up soon also will be a little demo / radio play of Across a Thousand Dead Worlds played in solo mode, which is another thing I don't get. Solo play. So yeah, I guess I'm taking some time to challenge myself and do some different things as well. My Patreon recently ticked up over $200 a month again, so I've started issuing preview material of current projects, and I will be kicking in discount codes for Postmortem Studios material starting on the 1st of next month. Again, free memberships are available, and take up on my mailing list has been incredibly slow and useless, so I kind of stopped bothering to update it. So free memberships on Patreon might be the best way to be sure that you know what stuff I'm up to and where, or to have a nice little place that consolidates everything I've done, written, and so on. So yeah, also some people's Patreon subscriptions appear to have failed recently, probably due to credit card or debit cards rolling over the year and information not being updated. So if you were subbed to my Patreon, it might be worth going back and looking there. And if you're not, now is probably a good time to subscribe. At even a buck a month, because that'll get you access. What else has been going on? Reddit. There's a TTRPG creators Reddit, which has a pinned post of that video by the potato accusing me by association of being a Nazi and getting a whole bunch of other things wrong about everybody. I asked whether, in light of the revelations around the Worst People You've Never Met article, it might possibly, perhaps, maybe be time to revisit having these sorts of things pinned, accusing people of being Nazis, and was immediately summarily banned for raising the issue. It's disappointing. It's very disappointing that nobody seems to even want to extend the possibility of redemption to anybody, even when it turns out that their victimization has been provably and demonstrably wrong. But let's press on while we're in a downbeat mood with something else shit that's happened. On the Evil Genius Games video, Judd Goswick says, I was afraid they were licensing too close to the sun. Turns out they were, I guess. There's the cost, which we've discussed, which could either be upfront or could have been percentage of sales. There's a bunch of reasons that could have caused them problems. Obviously, the Rebel Moon license has been the cause of many of their issues most recently. They only managed to claw back, I think, $50,000 from losing that license, which doesn't really compensate you for the amount of work that goes into games. Whether that would have done well for them or not, given the relative lack of success of Rebel Moon, unfortunately. I quite liked it. I don't know. But licenses, you're playing with fire, and it's a bit of an older model. But that said, as I said in the video, Modiphius have made it work. It's their model. It used to work for Mongoose Publishing, but Evil Genius seems to have been closer to the old Mongoose Publishing model rather than the Modiphius model for whatever reason. I think they had a lot of problems. I think the main one was the culture clash between that kind of hustle culture, tech bro culture, and the cozy cottage industry, plus backstabbing that is the tabletop RPG industry. Feral Gamers Inc. RPG says, as an indie publisher like yourself, I was surprised by the number of staff that they had. Like yourself, I do everything myself with the odd freelancer for art. I can't imagine what 20 plus people did. Yeah, it seems an unnecessarily large amount of people. I mean, to an extent, you can work faster the more people you have, but then you begin to lose any sort of singular auteur vision that you might have for a game or something. I would think that the way in which they were set up would necessitate a couple of writers, art director, someone to handle project management, and given the licenses, probably someone to handle where the license interfaces with the game. But even so, we're only talking maybe 10 people total if you include marketing and so on. 20 plus people seems a lot. It seems like an overhire, but they were trying to sprint before they could crawl in a lot of ways. It's unfortunate in a lot of ways, but I never... Something made me uneasy about Evil Genius right from the start. Though I couldn't put my finger on it, and I don't trust intuition, so make of that what you will. Banjo Sick says, oh no, you fell to Drama Kavorka, the lure of the beast of views. I enjoy it anyway. The Greek goddess or embodied spirit of gossip, rumour and scandal was Femi or Ossa, I think. I did look it up once. I think I was looking at the muses, because the Origins Award is Calliope, so I was wondering what the others were, and somehow stumbled across Femi or Ossa, which I'm pretty sure is the Greek goddess of gossip, rumour and scandal. So, yeah. Anon Ada Ian, at least I think that's what it is, or is it Anon Adalan? Don't know, can't tell with this font. Anyway, they say, I'm all but certain that not paying people is the central issue and everything else is just grievance added on top. That did strike me about Evil Genius's issues, that all of these people seem to have had all these problems, but they only really started to come out once the writing was already on the wall. Whether that was post hoc justification for bailing or something else, I don't know. But yeah, a lot of it does feel like grievance mongering, and it's interesting. It warms my old leftist heart to see that it's the material part, which we would regard as the most meaningful part, that set everyone off, and then the rest was just layered on top. So, Falling Tower 969 says, there seems to be a new tradition around here, coffee and a Grim Jim video. I cannot endorse the consumption of thin bean soup, but I can endorse the consumption of my videos. Magnificent Devil says, if you hire activists, they will see you as an opportunity for their activism. It's the scorpion and the frog. These were conditional activists, though. They were not activists provided their material needs were met or were promised that they would be met in the short to mid-term, and then flipped to prioritising their activism once their material conditions were no longer met. So make of that what you will. On the obligatory sex and romance video, Truffle said, I'm not going to do the whole comment, but anything is acceptable, especially if it's going to slam anything in the not in the LGBTQQIP2SAA plus spectrum. Holy mercy, that's the first time I've looked up the whole term. That's insane. What does this term do other than specify the whole world minus straight white men? It's going to sound horribly, chuddy to say that. Excuse me for having studied maths at school and realising what they're describing is you, the universal set, minus. Let's be honest, what other than straight white males? No, wait, the housemate is advising me it's not excluding straight white men, but it's excluding cis hetero. But housemate and I have just debated there's an unwritten but implied race aspect not covered by the acronym, which is obscured if you only talk binary black-white. But Egypt suing Netflix over Cleopatra demonstrates it's not binary black-white, but the sweeping culture definitely has a race aspect there. So it would be more efficient to just change the whole acronym to something like NCH, not cis hetero. So that might be better, and would neatly skip over the problem of having to give everyone their own letter. But yes, we do seem to be the punching bags for everyone, everywhere, all at once, despite it being our ancestors, or some tiny fraction, the 1% of our ancestors that actually did anything terrible. Firetouch says, for me it's also a matter of trust, which is why I only play certain games with people I know and can judge. Very judgy. At a con, for example, I would never offer anything other than D&D 5th or another mass media product. Of course, I wouldn't offer any adventures that are highly sexualized or glorify violence. I also hope that these players who are strangers to me will get involved in the fade to black. Alright, but suppose that you are a game maker who focuses on, well, let's say mature rather than adult game styles, and you are attending a convention at which you could quite reasonably expect to be able to run demos and to display your product. this presents a problem, doesn't it? And quite often cons these days have more closed off semi-private rooms for gaming in, which frankly is better anyway. But that's still going to be an issue for you, and you're going to be paying the same rate as anyone else who's going there. A lot of these cons seem to be caught in a kind of vice between wanting to be family friendly on the one hand and wanting to be progressive friendly on the other hand. And so as a creator, if you don't fall into either of those particular camps necessarily, at least in terms of games and content, you get squeezed from both sides. So you can't do anything titillating or violent or aimed at a mature audience because they want things to be family friendly, and you also can't do anything dark or interesting in other ways or mildly titillating or whatever, because the other camp of people are also going to be against it for whatever reason. So it's kind of, you're kind of screwed if you're someone who makes games like I make. Unfortunately, Jim Raggi seems to get away with it by just kind of ignoring it. But I think I remember him being asked to cover up certain material at Dragon Meet, but it's been so many years since I bothered going. I can't be sure of my own memory. Yeah. Jack Fetch says, my favourite game is Pendragon, which you mentioned, and one of the key goals for PCs is to found a dynasty. So courting and seduction is a key component. Plus, for pagan PCs, lust is actually part of their religious practices. But I'm as explicit or bland as the players wish to be. Yeah, Pendragon's a good one for that kind of generational style of play, and that creates an impetus for characters to find suitable partners or political partners, and to have children that they can then play later on after their main character is dead or whatever else. Know your role on the Fate core book. Rhino Watcher says, not sure what the gripe is with Evil Hat. They're kind of jerks on the fan support side, so I generally believe whatever gripes a creator has with them. Always do your own research is a phrase that has become unfortunate in recent years, but never just believe what people like me tell you. Go and check up on it. But as for Evil Hat, they have been hostile to their audience. I don't know about the fan support side. You know more than I do there. They have leveraged their influence on platforms like DriveThruRPG to force censorship of certain products and so on, which they probably feel justified in doing, but is a horrible and evil thing to do. Maybe with their name they're telling on themselves a bit, same as Evil Genius. They're happy to exploit Lovecraft's work for one of their games, while simultaneously and somewhat erroneously slagging the long dead man off and making a performative fuss about it. I guess that's really the crux of it. They are performatively good while being materially evil, and that's the problem. Wingus Ryu says, my group is... Oh, sorry, this is a stray romance one. In fact, okay, we're going back to the romance one for a few comments. So Wingus Ryu says, my group is weird in that we never had any romance or sex in our games. We must be doing it wrong. We're not really for or against. I think our style of play, it just doesn't come up. We're just there to dive into dungeons or fight against a corrupt vampire prince or get into our Veritex and fight the Zen tradie. Which is fair enough in so much as it's fair enough, but if you go and look back at the Robotech series, except the second one, which doesn't exist because it was shit. Romance is very much an important part of the narrative in Robotech. The love triangle, with Min Mei and what's her face on the bridge, and Rick, and all the rest of it. And Marlene is absolutely key in the Invid invasion. So, I think you're missing something if you don't include that, but it's fine to just blow shit up. It's my hobby horse, alright? Mercutio says, again on the romance video, anything goes as long as the players are comfortable. I played a long-term Drow campaign with everything that entails, presented as part and parcel of the setting, which you could engage with to any extent you chose. I've also seen Fade to Black employed in Vampire the Masquerade, as well as soft porn masquerading as I want some humanity back in the form of a 200-page IRC log. Lol. Yeah, me too, only less of the soft porn. And don't get me started on werewolf downtimes. Not sure if there are more instances of sex romance in TTRPGs via Discord or whatever virtual medium you choose, but I'd be willing to bet that yes, there are, for obvious reasons, and I'm absolutely fine with whatever ticks the boxes for those participating. Perhaps my open-mindedness is a character flaw. Now, where's my choose-your-own titillating romance novel? Steamspunk is already out. You can find it on my web stores and so on. Just waiting on the photos for the illustrated version, which should be even more titillating. But yeah, I think IRC back in the day, as you suggested, or Discord these days, perhaps are more suited to these sorts of things, role-playing naughty things between characters. I have dipped my toe into a more adult Discord server because I figured, I write and produce adult-oriented games and, run Tabletopless. And I thought it might be good for marketing or whatever. But I find myself recoiling a little from people there who seem intent on setting off my squicks. So other than observing with some sort of mild, personal but non-judgmental disgust, I haven't really gotten much of anywhere with that, unfortunately. But yeah, I think that distance certainly helps, but you're much more traceable. Your real identity is much more accessible on things like Discord than it ever was on IRC, and I think that probably puts a lot of people off to a large extent. Magnificent Devil says, I don't see PG-13 media ignore the motives of sex and romance. They just leave it as implicit as opposed to explicit. Even the old Looney Tunes cartoons used to address sexual attraction as a motive for cartoon characters. Since we all inherently understand the motives of sex and romance, much of it can be left unspoken. We'll get it without gratuitous and explicit detail. Now, again, even though I run a game with porn people who do sex stuff on screen, right, I'm not saying that everything needs to be explicit. And while cartoons and so on might, have Bugs Bunny cross-dress and Elmer Fudd do the bug eyes thing, you often don't even get that in tabletop games. People do seem to largely ignore all these things, and that's why I think it's worth bringing that to the fore in people's awareness, so that they can see that the games are usually lacking romance, sexuality, families, all of these things that are hella important in reality, but they seem to be entirely absent in games. And games such as those we play are often matters of wish fulfillment to a degree, and an outlet for things we are frustrated or annoyed at in real life, and romance definitely ticks those boxes. Lastly, on the Know Your Role video about Star Blazer Adventures, Rob Necronomicon says, Star Blazer was a great toolkit game. It's a real shame that it's been hamstrung by the license. However, had I more time, perhaps, maybe I would do a version stripped of all the particular Star Blazer content and the exact way in which all the rules were expressed, and put it together and release it somewhat cheaply, so that people have that toolkit still available. But I'm supposed to be taking this year easy, so maybe not. Anyway, that'll do for comments for now. Sundays I don't normally do a video, so I will likely be back Monday. I may be taking Tuesdays off as well going into the future, as keeping up this pace of videos has become somewhat punishing. Zang. I have a fairly mellow Discord if you want to join us there for a bit of conversation and debate. We have people from all over, really, and for the most part it's fairly good-natured and peaceful. As long as you come in that kind of spirit, you'll be fine.